Hey everyone, you've joined us, you're here. Welcome to Around the Basket, episode 5.
Yes, episode 5.
High five. Yeah.
High five.
We're getting to that point now in these episodes where we're counting up now. Like we were counting up the chain out episodes. Now we can say episode 5.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Daryl, as always, joined by my fabulous co-host, Vanna White.
Let me just turn the letter here. That's what
Jeremy.
I go by on the side. I don't know.
Yeah. Jeremy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Daryl, and so excited for another Around the Basket. Had a great time last week. We had Ryan Bonner on the show.
Yep, from local disc golf. Great conversation.
Yeah, chatted a lot about Ken Climo, which I think there's some more news on, but we're not going to focus the whole episode on that this week.
No,
No.
we might not even talk about him at all.
Yeah,
But I'm sure he'll come up at some point.
that's right.
But you know who we have on this week?
Who do we have?
We have a guest that we've had on before.
Yeah?
We have a local guest that if people are part of the Edmonton Disc Golf Association would know that he was a member on the board in 2023.
Yes.
For 2024. But for the 2025 season, he just got, I don't want to say promoted. He just took a promotion.
Elevated
To a vice president of Edmonton Disc Golf Association. Let's welcome Matt Dwyer.
Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Very
excited
welcome.
to have you on.
Very welcome to be back on the show.
Yep.
If you come back on for us,
on the
Sorry, go ahead.
Patreon, no less. That's really cool.
Yeah. If you get invited back on for a second episode, you know you did something right.
Yeah. And we were thinking, Matt, was the first time that you were on. I looked back. It was episode 21. It was March 28th of this year. And it was our first live episode. You were our first live guest, if you can believe that.
I do. I can believe that because I remember you messaging me about it and saying, "Hey, we're going to be live, like, just so you know." And I was like, I kind of wish I didn't know because now there's all this pressure. But it was great. I mean, I think you guys ran it really well, and it seems like it's stuck. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you have? I mean, I think I've asked you this before out on the course. You've watched your episode back?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. How did you think you did?
We
were obviously pretty good, but how did you do?
I think it's all in the preparation, right? I think I could have rambled, I could have talked about all sorts of stuff, but you guys guided it really well. So I think I was impressed. It was really great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Thank
say
you.
you nailed it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get into some of the other stuff I want to talk about, I realized in my little show notes here when we talked about Ryan Bonner, who was on the show last week.
Yeah.
So he's from local disc golf. He's got a YouTube channel. We want to support everybody who is supporting Canadian disc golf. And one of the things he did was he just dropped that video he was telling us about regarding the skis for disc golf carts.
Yeah.
So that video is now out there. So everybody should go check it out. Make sure to like, comment, all of that good stuff. Subscribe to Ryan's channel there. But what do you think, Daryl? Would you put skis on your disc golf cart?
I mean, if you asked me before we went to Cold Garden and we did our 18 holes at Baker Park before, I would have said no. But trying to drag a cart through the snow, the fresh snow at Baker Park, I'd pay you any amount of money for a set of skis for my cart. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I should have just bought a bag.
Well, I was going to say, because you have a cart as well. Like you've got bags and a cart as well, right, Matt?
Yeah, but the cart is retired for the winter season. I don't think I'll be taking it out until probably at least March, maybe April.
Yeah. See, he knows something that we didn't know because what we realized is when the snow is wet, it starts to pack on the wheel, and then your wheel is about twice as thick as when you started.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as when we went to Bailey's with Tim and Kristen. I just automatically thought, I don't need my disc because I've got my cart in my truck. And then I think we were setting off on hole 1 and Kristen looked at me and you and was like, "Oh, wow, you guys are impressive bringing carts to Bailey's." And it was only at that point that I realized, oh yeah, there's hole 12. There's the walk up to hole 12. That's not very cart friendly.
Yeah, I was going to say that I've made that exact same mistake at Bailey's and a few choice other like memory courses of there being a lot more elevation than maybe I bargained for. So I think I have become a little like cart hesitant. Like if I've never played a course before, I'll probably just bring the backpack the first time until
Right.
I feel like, okay, this is a cart course. I can bring the cart now.
That's an experienced cart owner right there.
That's right. Somebody who's been in the game a little longer than our 2-3 years that we're working on here. Well, another thing too, before we hit that topic, did you know with the Patreon, we are now up to 10 members that have joined, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure to shout out Brendan McKinstry. He's our newest Chainlink member, and you'd know him as the owner of BR Disc Golf.
Yeah.
And also the sponsor of our fantasy episodes. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Season 1. Maybe he'll be a returning sponsor for season 2. Who
We'll-
knows?
We'll see. Perfect. Well, one of the reasons, Matt, that we thought we'd bring you on the show is that you've had a unique experience compared to most Edmontonians. Most Edmontonians, we've played in Edmonton, we've played in Calgary, we might have got out to Vancouver, Ontario I've been to, but not a lot of us get trips down to the States. But you have that unique perspective that you've actually lived in the US in multiple states and had a chance to play disc golf all over. So we thought you could bring something to the conversation. Hey, Daryl?
Yeah, absolutely.
And where do you want to start this mad conversation?
I mean, so if you look at US, they got the Pro Tour, the amount of US players on the Pro Tour compared to how many Canadians on the Pro Tour, like it's heavily swayed on in their favor. How would you rate, from your experience of disc golf in the US, how would you rate their development as opposed to the development of disc golf in Canada?
Well, I think in the U.S. it's so heterogeneous in that, like, you look at the country as a whole and you might be able to say like the development is going to be bigger in the U.S., but it really is localized to a few places. I mean, I think like you look at some of the top pros, a lot of them have ties to the same areas. It's North Carolina and kind of other like parts of the South, like Georgia, Florida. Some on the East Coast in like the kind of Massachusetts, like Northeast kind of Maine area. And, like the Mountain West a little bit, Midwest. But like in a lot of the country, it's not going to be all that different than maybe some of the more kind of like disc golf deserts in Canada as well. Like you might have more kind of courses like per capita in a lot of the US compared to here. But I do think that there's going to be a bigger difference between like disc golf hubs in the US compared to kind of the average disc like community that may or may not even have it in the US, compared to the difference in like a place like Calgary in Canada, which is probably going to have a lot more in common with some of those like parts of the US where disc golf has been around for a long time and there's a lot of courses and a growing community there. So I think like there's definitely opportunities for development, but not equally. Right. You're going to see it like if you're from a certain area where it's just a bigger part of the kind of infrastructure that's been around. There's a community that's there that people can kind of feed into and grow into. It's not going to be that different than some of the bigger places here in Canada. It just there might be more of them. And so you're probably more likely to just happen to be born or move or live in a place where that might be there. And I think Canada's catching up. Like I think Jason on the previous interview made some really good points about sort of the disc golf slowdown. And it's definitely happening here in some ways. But when I talk to friends or I see like in Facebook groups or, groups that I was a part of down in the US, like it's not being felt equally everywhere. And so I think that there's definitely a stronger growth trajectory that I'm seeing since moving to Canada that I did not feel prior to moving here, like in the more recent kind of post-COVID time.
Right. What do you think is more beneficial to a development of one of those disc golf hubs? Would you say having a top quality course, but only having maybe one or two is better for the promotion of disc golf, or having an abundance of courses, but maybe not at that top level?
Oh,
well, I mean, I think you look at a lot of the top level courses, they're not in high population areas, right? At least the ones that maybe, right? And so I think like if you're going to say a top level course is what's going to be necessary to grow a scene, it's going to be, I think, very useful to attract players, to bring people from the outside into your community. I think you certainly would see a lot of that, but like I think you're going to have a much more like a much more bang for your buck with a course like a Baker Park. Or like a big one for me was Sedgley Woods in Philadelphia. It's a very old course. It's been around since the 70s. So it's not, and the original 18 hole course is still like, you can play the original layout still to this day, where people are playing with ultimate lids, right? So it's not like a high level, championship level course, but it's got to be one of the most like heavily trafficked, and there's always people there. The community is strong, it's thriving. There's tons of people that are really passionate about it, and like that's, I think, just because it's been around for so long, and it appeals to newer players that can come in and have fun with it and not feel like they're playing up all the time.
That's kind of where I was going with it, because recently there's been some talk about the area that I live in Beaumont, of getting a course. It's obviously not going to be anything near the level of like a Rundle or Hermitage like we have in Edmonton, but also Fort Saskatchewan are trying to get a course in the ground out there. And I know there was some debate on whether it should be an easier style course or a bit more challenging. And I guess it's got its pros and cons, right? If you want to get more people into the sport, make it a bit more accessible, make it a bit more easier, they'll enjoy it more, they'll get out more. But then when you get to that point where those type of courses are no longer a challenge for people that want to grow in the sport, does that then get them to a point where they get stale, they get stuck, and they lose interest?
Yeah. I mean, you do need both ultimately. Like if you can grow a community enough where you've got people that want to stick around, and they say, okay, I played on the kind of entry level course, and I've decided this is something I like to do. I've made some friends. I've developed kind of a social like community around it. I'm not just maybe going out with like my one or two buddies that I always go out with. Now what else is there left for me to do? And how do I keep, interested and keep engaged? So I think you do need both. But if you had to choose, like, I think more places would benefit from having that like smaller 9-hole kind of entry level course that anybody can play over the 18-hole course, just because it's going to capture a wider net of people. And if you are somebody that's interested in playing a higher caliber, you want to challenge, like, you're going to probably be willing to travel for it. And be more willing to do so, especially compared to the person that maybe like is going to go out their starter pack and play twice a year, and that's their disc golf hobby. Yeah.
If you want to grow disc golf, you have to have some sort of starter course, something that is, you can do it. Like, I think the most recent example would be Dog Rump Creek out in Stony Plain, right?
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. Because they did two different tee pads, right? So there's a tee pad there that is fairly less challenging. That's something a new person could get into and do well. And I think you need something like that. You think about, I'm out in St. Albert and we've got Langholm. It's a 9-hole course. I go out there all the time. So even though I like more difficult courses and more challenging courses, I'll suck it up and go to the one that's close to me. But there are so many people who are out there who aren't part of our club, who are trying for the first time, who are throwing the discs that they got from a picnic or whatever it is.
Weekend warriors.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, to me, I'm thinking if you're trying to develop your disc golf community, you got to have an easy course for people to start out on and let the experienced disc golfers deal with it. We'll create our own tee pads. We can figure it out, right?
Sam's in the chat here, and he kind of echoed what, I think it's what the consensus is. I think course volume is more important than course quality for exposure to new people.
Yeah. And that would be, like, we went down to Calgary to play Baker Park, and Baker Park is one of the most played courses in Canada. Is it the best course, Daryl? Would you have said? No. Like, and if
I
you
thought that
play,
was a trick question. Then.
No. But if you play DRM, you go to WJ Homestead. We expect that Lloyd Park would be the same thing. Those are the courses that are the great ones, but they're not getting played at the same volume. Why is that? Because it's convenient. It's easy enough for anybody of any skill level to play. So you've got to find that balance for sure.
So let's say you've been playing for a few years, and you take that big step like we all have taken, and you decide to go for some tournaments. Your experience playing down south of the border, what do you think that, if any, what are the differences between some of the tournaments that you've played in the US versus some of the tournaments you've played in Canada?
I mean, it is kind of interesting. So like in the places that I've lived in the US, the people I think play to their rating more, and as opposed to kind of where they think that the kind of like level of competition in the whatever respective division that they're in. Like I've had some really interesting discussions with with some folks up here after having played in a couple tournaments about like what division that I should be playing in. And when I first came up here, I think technically by rating, I would have been able to qualify for MA2. I was like slightly under I think it's like 935 or whatever, something around there. That if you're above, you have to go into MA1. And so I was close, but I wasn't quite there. And so where I had been previously living in St. Louis, Missouri, most recently, and then before that out in New Jersey, in the Philadelphia area, I was primarily playing in MA2 with a similar rating. Like it's gone up a little bit. Whereas up here, I think that would be considered like kind of a sandbagging decision. And I've played MA1 since moving up here just because that's the norm, right? And so I think that's something that I've noticed a little bit of a difference of. And I don't know if that's because of just like rating deflation that's going on in Canada. I think I've heard some discussion around like you've got comparable level players that play in both the US and in Canada, and they'll maybe like their skill level doesn't necessarily change, but their ratings will vary quite a bit. So that might be part of it. But I do think that like there's more of a norm up here to play to whatever like the average kind of player within that division is supposed to be, and how close are you to that, as opposed to where does your rating allow you to play and having that be what dictates what division that you're in, and are you below a cutoff versus like what are you closest to in terms of the top end.
Well, I know we're talking about US, but the one thing about these shows is great is that the spin-off questions and comments that come up is it just came to my mind is that rather than treating the rating cap as you can go up if you want to, but you can't play in this one if it's there, what if it was the other way? What if it was that you have to earn your way into the next rating? So you're in MA2. MA2 is up to 935. Well, I want to play MA1. Well, get better. You can't. You got to get better. And when you get to 936, then welcome to MA1. What if we treated it that way? I've told Daryl, I'm like, I don't have a lot of hot takes, but I have these ideas and they come out and then it's time to shoot them down or think about them.
Well, I'm just thinking of a conversation that we had with Carrie Neal, who said that she's had people before sign up for a tournament in a certain division. Then they get a ratings update or whatever. And then before the tournament goes live, she has to tell them, you've got to go up or you've got to go down. Like you're not, well, maybe not down, but she's had to push people around because of ratings. Now, my question with you, if you're 935 and you say, okay, now you're 936, you got to go up. Let's say they go up and they play that tournament, they tank it, they get a bad rating.
Now you got to go down.
Then now they're back down again?
Yeah, like you have to earn your way to the top, because what'll happen is you'll find people will say, oh, I want to play this division so I can play the Pro Ts. Perfect. Get good enough so you can play the Pro Ts.
And sorry, Matt, we'll get to you in a second. My point to that would be, if somebody was 936, but they still wanted to play MA2, can they do that? Or
no?
See, I'm all for that, because that comes to the thing that I have an issue with the ratings is that people kind of move up and down the divisions, and they'll base it on what the tournament is like or what tees they want to play, or who the field is and things like that. If you have to go up because your rating says you have to go up, you don't get a choice. I'm all for that.
Is that what the color ratings are? Am I just pretty much saying the color ratings?
I think so.
That's exactly what I thought of as well. And whenever I've played in an event where that has been, there's only been a handful of times, and there are oftentimes events that I think are geared towards like more recreational players, which I think works really well because it takes a lot of the guesswork out. You don't have to have a lot of tournament experience to think and say like, well, this is what my rating says it is, but the variance there, like I could play 20 points higher, 30 points lower, depending on the round, right? Depending on whether I'm playing with a lead or with any kind of pressure on me versus just out here having fun. Like I think having that kind of color rating system takes a lot of the guesswork out. And I found that the sandbagging, like kind of questions and the like people not feeling sure if they should play up or not kind of goes away, because it takes a lot of the decision making out of the player's hands and puts it into, where your past performance would dictate you should go.
Yeah. And I think it has to work well in the fact that we've got one guy beside us who has one career.
So go ahead.
Yeah. Am I okay to say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got one guy beside us here out of the two of us who has one career win. And that was because he played in the division that he was mandated to play in. So
I was just going to say, because we're also sitting opposite somebody who won on that very same day.
Oh, yes.
Matt won MA1 at that tournament as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you say to me, "Oh, congratulations for winning," and I said, "Yeah, but my rating went down. I was when at the time of when I signed up, I was in 846 or 840, whatever."
And we should say this is the queer disc golf event that was at Kingswood, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, sorry. It was a color rated event. My rating put me in whatever color I was supposed to be in, but at that time, I felt like my rating didn't reflect my actual skill level. I think I just had a bad tournament. My rating went down. I was in a certain division, and then I ended up winning it. You say, well, that's just the luck of the draw. That's where it was.
Yeah.
I feel like it almost felt, to me, it felt like a little bit like sandbagging. And even though I had no control over it, I didn't purposely drop my rating just so I could go in a lower division so I could win it or whatever that might have been. But I definitely agree with that color. If you're in this division or if you're in that rating, then you're in this division. That's it. If you're in this one, then you're in that one.
Right. Well, I do think that's part of the discussion is how accurate do we believe the rating system as it is as a measure of ability, right? And we're really only looking at it in this case, if it's a PDGA rating, we're only looking at it in one context, which is in sanctioned rated rounds or sanctioned rated leagues, right?
Yeah.
Which might not necessarily be the norm. That's not maybe most of the rounds that, at least for amateur players, are playing. Like most of the time, they're not playing in that kind of a context. And I think that matters quite a bit. Like if you look at my PDGA performance, like one of the most common, probably the most common modal number placement I have is second place because of playing with a lead and how much pressure that can come in after a first round if you play really well and then having to back it up. The rating drop is something that I don't think is limited to just myself. I think that's a very common experience with people who don't do a lot of competitive play as their norm in terms of what they're normally doing. So yeah, I think the extent to which the rating is reflective of your general ability is an interesting question. But if we're only using it in this case for the context of where should you play, or for the question of where should you be playing in a tournament, do we trust that as our best measure to be able to do so? And is there a better alternative one out there? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, if we did that, does that impact the way the ratings do? Do the ratings get better when people are playing where they're supposed to play rather than playing up because they want to play this course because they like the longer tees, but they're not ready to play those longer tees, and now they're taking horrible scores because they can't handle that level of course? And then that rating skews the people's ratings that are in that division. It starts to really snowball in my mind. But
two points that I kind of want to say. One, on the ratings and being in that color coded, it's human nature to try and find a workaround and a way around it and try and a way to exploit it. Do you think that would lead to people on purpose playing badly at an event prior to a ratings update so that when they are able to play in the event that they want to play in, they can play in a lower division so they can win? Does that make sense?
I would say definitely is my thought, but that's the same people who are going to find ways to cheat every system. Right. So I think the general people are not going to do that because you want to be the best player you can be, and you're going to play to be the best player that you can be.
Those are the same people that get 1,000 rated, and then when they play their next tournament and they don't play so well, they drop out with injury.
Yeah, exactly. They 999 so that they don't have to lose their rating for sure. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I want to believe that most people are only playing there are probably a lot of weekend warriors out there who maybe are trying to play to the but I think most people, they just don't play in enough events where it'd be worth tanking one of the few weekends a year they get to actually get out there and compete.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Which is really what we're talking about. We're talking about MA2, MA1, MA3. We're not talking.
Right. Yeah, I do think the discussion around moving from amateur to open is also what you were talking before about differences, right? I think that people, I've noticed here in Canada, or at least in Edmonton, I've not played in any events outside of Edmonton yet, but are much more encouraging of people to step up to MPO or FPO. I think that's great. I think that's really cool that people are saying yeah, you have the skill set, you can do so. Whereas I think that's something that is it's encouraged, but almost in like a, you know, I don't know. I've not encountered that to be as like, you know, I don't know what the right word to say is, like when I've seen that here, like, and I've had some people come up to me and ask me like, oh, you won Thunder Toss last year. Does that mean you're going to step up to MPO? And in my mind, I'm thinking like, look do you see the people that are playing in MPO? Like, do you see what they can do? And, right. But I don't question the authenticity around it. Right. Whereas I think, you know, when maybe somebody wins an MA1 in some of the places I've lived before, right, if you don't move up, that's kind of seen as like, you're, you know, you're not playing by the rules. Like that's the norm. That's what you should do. Right. And it's less so of like people trying to be encouraging about it. And it's almost like an expectation. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that leads on to the second point that I had there. And Sam brought it up in the chat that he thinks it was chance. Yeah. It was chance that we had this discussion with before. And he basically said that pools aren't competitive because people are leaving too soon. Right. Because like you said, you win MA1. People say, oh, so you're going to open? So they push you into MPO. You're not at that level to go into MPO or even, you know, dropping it down. You win MA2. Oh, you should be in MA1, but you're not at that level to go to MA1. So you, even though you might continually win MA2, maybe you're not at that level to be pushed up into MA1. Then you get all these people pushed up into MA1, which then makes it not competitive, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Dina's put a comment here too that says that if you deliberately try, and I don't know how they'd catch you to tank your rating, then you can get in trouble with the PDGA. And I know they also have the whole thing that if your round is X amount percentage out of your regular average rounds, it doesn't even count towards your rating. So you can't, it's trying to prevent that tank. I think it's fairly liberal though. You could still do a pretty bad score and have it included in your rating. But if you're like us, we're 850 rated in that range. If we have a 700 rated round, it doesn't count. We're not getting that that's not lowering our rating. So, but maybe if we can, let's bring that back. And we got Sam in the chat there too. So Sam, we kind of mentioned it when we were talking to Jason, was you went down for the NADGT and you've played MA3 up here in a number of tournaments. You've played all over Alberta. I know that. When you went down to Austin, maybe throw it in the comments, how do you think you played? Do you think it was a little bit different or do you think it was the same? Do you feel you fell where you should have in the division? Because that would be kind of a good input there.
Yeah, I don't know if we were talking about this off air before the episode or whether we were talking about it in the previous episode. But you mentioned about you've heard people say that when you play MA2 in Canada, if you go down to the States to play, that's more like an MA3, MA4 level.
That was Jason, was saying that too. So we'll see what he has to say. And then you've done that. Have you noticed that? Like, you haven't gone back recently, have you, and played any U.S. tournaments since you've come up to Canada?
Not recently, no. I think the last one would have been when I was living in St. Louis. I played in the Dark Ace Open, which was a B tier, and played in MA2. Did well. I cashed. I didn't win, and I felt that was the right division for me. I think if I had moved up to MA1, it would have not. I would have not been competitive. It would not have been, that would not have been the right place for me. And then my rating wouldn't have allowed me to play lower than that. So I think that was, for me, that felt like a right placement to be in. It did not feel like I was like out of sort of what would be like the norm in that division there. So as far as like the MA2 to MA4, like, I think there's just a lot of, like Daryl was kind of saying before, there's a lot of like variability in the amateur divisions up here, where the top end and the bottom end are much further apart than what you might see in some of the places where at least I've played, where there's not as big of a difference between the top player and like an MA2 or an MA3 and a bottom player. And that might just be because of like the volume of people that are in some of the places trying to sign up for these tournaments, right? And again, this was mostly like closer to the pandemic, where trying to sign up for a tournament was like you had to be in Discdle scene with your PayPal information already logged in, like on the button, ready to go, which is probably not the case anymore in most places. So that probably had something to do with it as well. But yeah, I found that like the range is a little bigger up here in terms of who will play where, and maybe to your guys' point earlier, it's less based on the competition and more so of what do I want my experience to be? Do I want to play on the pro tees? Do I want to play with my friends who are maybe playing in this division? Versus where do I feel like I'm most competitive and where do I feel like I slot in terms of being able to contend for a win? So,
yeah.
You asked Sam the question, so I'll put it out there for the people that might be listening. He said, I think what Matt said is accurately reflective of what he felt as well. People played to their ratings. But then talking about some of the issues is that he also thinks that we suffer from smaller player bubbles. And there is simply way less competition here at local C and B tiers.
Yeah, and you know what's fair about that is I did one of my first tournaments. Like I played Tundra Toss, and then I went out to Kamloops and played TCO. And I was in MA3 or MA4. And I think there was like 46 or 47 people in that division.
Yeah.
And what I realized there was when you get those large divisions, those bigger bubbles, as Sam's referring to, you do fall into the right spot very quickly because there's that many other people that you can, okay, this is what the top of the division looks like. This is what the bottom of the division looks like. And it is fairly sparse. So when you only have 4 players playing in it, it can look a lot different.
I know that was your second ever tournament and it's hard to say what your rating was based at that point. But to Brock's point in the chat, anecdotally, I thought I played poorly at Nationals, but every round was higher than my rating. So even though he thought he played worse, because he's playing in that event, in that field, his rating was higher than what he would normally play.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it kind of brings me to part of this with the US, if I can, with this, the US Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is something that you and I had chatted about in the emails there too, Matt, was that if you qualify for a tournament in Canada and that gives you a spot for a US tournament, how many people do you actually think are going down? And is that kind of like a good offering? Is that a good thing? Should people really take advantage of it?
Oh yeah. I mean, people should definitely take, if they can, right? Obviously people in Canada are going to have to travel a lot further for pretty much any of the events that you might qualify for that might be down in the US. But if you can, like when else are you going to be able to play some of these courses in the way that you've seen him played on Jomez or that you've seen, on YouTube, like other kind of rounds and things like that. Like if you have a chance to be able to play a course, like doing it in a setting where other people are going to be traveling to come there, they also qualified for it in the same way that you did from wherever they're coming from. And they're just excited to be there and excited to experience that with you and with everybody else who's there. So like the example would be myself and then Scott Brimacombe here qualified to go down to the USDGC amateur dubs. And we talked ahead of time when we were considering signing up as partners and said, I really only want to do this if we win, like we're good to go. Right. And we both were in agreement on that because like, we were like, for one, like taking a spot from somebody else who would want to go if we did win and decided not to, like to me felt unfair.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure like if I'm going to sign up for this thing, I'm actually going to do it with the intention of being able to go if I can. And then also just the fact that like it did kind of feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to do. So if you can, I think you definitely should. And a lot of these events do cater towards trying to bring in people from places that otherwise the players would not be able to come down there or would not have a strong enough reason to, that would motivate them to take the time and spend the money to be able to go and do it. So like when we were down there were other Canadian teams, one actually from Fort Mac. We didn't actually get to meet them. We were looking at the registration and we were trying to figure out if we were the furthest traveling team to come down. And we found out no, by only a little bit. Right. But there was a team from Nova Scotia, a couple from Ontario, one from, I think, Manitoba as well. So like there were other Canadian teams that came down and I'm pretty sure they all showed up as well because we went back and looked through the results. So I think like the Canadian players, and we did talk to a couple of Canadian players and we all shared the same sentiments of like, this is very, very special for us. This is not, driving up from Florida for a few hours to be able to play a course that we might be able to play again another time if we really want to. Everybody was under the same impression of like, we might not get another chance to do this, since we're going to try to make the most of it while we can. And so if you have a chance to be able to do that, whether it's USDGC like we did, or some of these other like larger A tier, B tier events, definitely do it if you can, especially if it's a course that you've had on your bucket list for a while. That's the best way to be able to do it, for sure.
So I recently had a little bit of a conversation with you about this, and I kind of mentioned about, how many qualifier events are there, and is there enough spots actually on the tournament to facilitate all these winners? And you kind of mentioned that that's kind of built into the model, is that they know that not everybody who wins is going to go down and participate in that event. With that being said, and I guess this is my devil's advocate side coming out, if you don't have any you don't have any plan on going to the event, should that stop somebody entering the qualifier with it? Do you know what I mean? If they're not even planning on going down, like you said, you only entered because you knew that you and Scott said, if you're going to win, then you're going to go, because you don't want to win and restrict somebody else from going. If somebody had won that had no intention of going, should they have even entered the competition in the first place?
Right. Yeah. I think I was a little tentative, because for me that was important. Right. And
right.
But the trade-off though is, in order for those qualifiers to happen, they rely on more people to sign up than can possibly go, to be able to fund it, to be able to support it, to be able to make it so that whoever the company, in this case it was Innova, is able to like recoup the costs, and then be able to use the funds for the big show, which is bringing all the pro players in maybe the next weekend, right? Which, by the way, like is an opportunity for you to be able to go spectate if that's something that you also would want to be able to do, right? Because you're already there. We didn't do that, but we very well could have, if that was something where we were able to budget the time. So I think that's a consideration, is like, if everybody thought that way, the way that I kind of expressed, the whole system would probably not work.
No one would show up, and then you could run one. And for people, just to add in, I'd like to add in the little things, is we're talking that you actually went down to USDGC is where you guys got to play, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's crazy course for sure. But yeah, as you're saying, you have to have people come out. So that's kind of that tough thing, because you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to win. And then you go ahead and you win. Then what happens, right? Ooh. So we're showing off some awesome discs. We got a USDGC doubles, and then we've got a USDGC that
nice.
Alex Penny had given to.
Yeah, I didn't earn mine. I was given mine.
You earned it. You've done a great job on a podcast, and Alex wanted to reward us. So I think that might have been one of the reasons.
Well, if you look at where we actually placed, I don't feel like I earned mine either. But we had a good time.
Yeah. Was it a lot more difficult once you got down? Obviously, the course is more difficult than what you would have played up here. But did you guys really get humbled a bit when you got to Winthrop?
Absolutely. And it was, going back to the conversation earlier, like, so we got second place in the qualifier here at Rundle, right?
Yeah.
Shot. I thought we shot pretty well, right, in terms of being able to do that. There were some really good teams that came out to Edmonton to be able to play for this qualifier, and any one of them could have won if it was their weekend, right?
Yeah.
So we were feeling pretty confident going down there of where we were going to potentially be able to place. But once then you look at some of these players and some of these teams coming from elsewhere in the US, and like, remember, everybody here is an amateur, but you're seeing amateurs in the 970s, 980s, 990s, right? And you're kind of wondering, like, what is the scene must be looking like, and wherever they're coming from, where they're playing in the amateur division to be able to qualify to come and play in this event.
Right.
So yeah, no, we were not at all, I think, up to the average and the par where we would have needed to be competitive at the event itself. And then, yeah, the course was very humbling. It's just a style that, like, we don't, not even in Edmonton, but like, you just don't see that kind of style of course elsewhere, except for the ones that you see on the pro tour, right? It requires a level of distance and control and ability to, like, play very smart shots and stay out of bounds and know where your landing zones are, that I don't think, all but like maybe the top like 1% of courses, challenging wise, are going to be able to really, like, you're not going to have the experience on to be able to come in feeling well prepared on a course like that. So yeah, I mean, in the way that, like, I think people will talk about, is Winthrop, too soft for the pros these days? Certainly not too soft for
the AMs.
for sure.
Just a little bit of an aside here. Having played Winthrop, what did you feel was hard about the course? Was it distance? Was it, like you said, keeping your disc in bounds? Was it that you had to have certain shots that you don't normally throw in the courses that you've played before? Was there a certain shot that you had to, if you didn't have that shot in your bag, then you're, instantly behind the 8 ball?
Or D, all of the above.
Yeah, or D, all of the above.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some combination there, but one thing that really did stand out is, like, I play a fairly conservative style golf, like in a competitive setting, where I rely quite a bit on, like, kind of moderately overstable backhand hyzer shots, one angle shots, where there's not a lot of opportunity, whether it's windy, whether you release, too soft or too, put too much on it. Like, the margin for error becomes a lot smaller when you remove the need to throw a flex line, or the need to put any kind of turn on a disc, or to throw anything that has any kind of flip to it, right? And so I can get away with that out at Rundle, Hermitage, on a lot of the courses out there, because of the airspace that a park style course, like a lot of our local courses, will, and the fact that the distance demands aren't outside of kind of my maximum range on a lot of the kind of more scoreable holes there.
Yeah.
But with Winthrop, all of the landing zones that you would have to be able to access in order to be able to score birdies on that course, or even get a lot of consistent pars in some of those holes, are just not within the range for a player like myself to be able to throw that style of shot. And so you have to be able to throw these kind of more risky, like turning, flexing kind of Anheuser shots, to be able to extend it out to get over the out of bounds that you might be trying to clear, or to make sure that you're not going to fade out too much at the end of the shot if you come up too short and go out of bounds on the left side, or whatever it may be. So I think just the fact that we don't play on courses with the amount of OB that's intentionally placed where you would want to land a safe shot meant that we were not, like, it's just not a skill set that we had well developed. Whereas some of the other teams that were down there definitely, had that. And maybe it's because of the courses they were playing, or maybe because some people play in this event and that wasn't their first time out there, and so it's kind of the fortunateness, if you live kind of locally to some of these things, that you have the ability to practice on that. So
I don't want to stay on USDGC or Winthrop for too long, but Dylan asked in the chat, how did hole 5 and hole 17 play? And you can say tough.
Hole 5. So hole 5 was interesting. So they did not, and so full disclosure, Scott and I did not make the cut for the final rounds. We only played.
So don't bother watching coverage.
But in fairness, everybody only got to play Winthrop the one time because of all the flooding that had happened. They really needed to do a lot of work on the course, and so they were only able to open it up to us for just the 2 days. The A pool and B pool each got to play at one time. So we did play it through at once. On hole 5, it's the big par 5, if I recall, right? And at least it was a par 5 for the amateurs. And normally they would have you play out to the end of that peninsula, where you're throwing over most of the pros are throwing over the water, trying to get out to the corner there. Yeah. They moved the basket in because of where the flood line was, and also I think probably just to make it easier on us. Right. However, just based on the way that we played the course, we actually almost kind of unintentionally ended up throwing out over turning our forehand shots over too much, and then landed out towards that corner where we could have parked the normal basket for a par, but then ended up having like a 60-foot coming back to the safer part where we should have landed. So I think we got a bogey on hole 5. Hole 17 actually was one of our few birdies, and that was all Scott. It was a solo bird on his part. He threw a great tee shot that landed right short of the path, kind of before you get over the path towards where the hay bales would be. Right. And I had to have been like a 45-foot death putt down. And I told him, I was like, you made this great drive. I'm going to lay it up so that you can make your solo bird here. And then he did. So that was definitely a highlight for sure.
Sweet. Well, you know what it's making me think of, Daryl, for myself, is that they do, and tell me if I'm wrong, this is what I think they do, is they do a glitch tournament throughout the year. That's a qualifier for the glitch championships. And I think they do that at Maple Hill, don't they?
Yeah.
So I could see myself, I would go and play with a glitch at Maple Hill, because then I'd stick around and play with something, the rest of my bag later. But
Assuming that you qualify.
oh, man. Well, I think something like that with a glitch, I think everybody has a fair chance, don't
You're
they?
forgetting the part where you actually have to qualify to go to play the Maple Hill.
But I was going to say, a glitch is only going to go so far. So whether you're 970 or you're 850, it's only going to go so far, right?
Yeah.
Is that the way it works?
And now you're forgetting the putting part.
Oh yeah, there is that too.
Yeah.
That would be a good. I think so. One of my disc golf bucket list items is to do the Polecat World Championships. I had a really pretty good close disc golf friend of mine in New Jersey who was like a Polecat fanatic, and that was like his big dream. And so I think it sort of rubbed off on me a little bit of saying how fun would that be. I know they've done that one in San Francisco a few times. That course that's out there in Golden Gate Park. But yeah, I think one of those, like the glitch one, the Polecat one, there's got to be. When we had the Berg one here in Alberta.
I was just gonna.
I think those are great. Shake it up a bit. Why not?
Well, it's good, but it's bad because the Berg one we played out at Niska, and my score with the Berg was not very much different than the way I play with the whole bag. So I don't know how I felt about that.
Yep, not different enough. Me too, for sure.
Yeah.
And actually, so I think I got the number wrong. So I forget who was in the chat. They were asking about hole 17, which now that I'm remembering is the water hole, right? Or it's the island hole.
Island hole.
Yes.
We made the island.
When you said hay bales, I was thinking that maybe they changed it for you and you could lay up, but you actually had to play onto the island.
Right. No, I made I was mixing it up with a different hole out there. But yeah, hole 17. And that was a very nerve-wracking one because the team that we were playing on the same card as both threw out of bounds on their tee shots before us and had to re-tee. Made it on after the re-tee. But now Scott and I was getting a notification on my smartwatch about your heart rate is up and it doesn't look like you're moving very much. Because we had to make the shot.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And then, so what ended up happening on that one?
So yeah, we made the island. We did not, and we had a good look at the putt, but I think we were both so nervous from having to throw the tee shot that we both pulled our putts wide, hit the chains, and kind of splashed out. So we didn't get the birdie, unfortunately. But par was very good. We felt great about getting a par on that one for sure. There were some big numbers on that hole.
Oh, I bet.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about that tournament, and maybe not using that as an example because obviously that's going to be a one-off tournament for people to go and visit, but any of the tournaments that you've played down in the States, and obviously now you've come up to Canada and you see how Edgar does it and how other organizations do the tournaments up here in Canada, how would you rate Canadian or the events that the tournaments that we run up here in Canada? Are they that much different to local C and B tier events down in the States?
I mean, I'm biased because now I'm gonna hopefully be helping out running some of this stuff. But I mean, truly, as good, if not better, as far as how they're run, right? I think what we lack maybe in the remoteness of Edmonton just as a city, there isn't an easy way to be able to when I was so spoiled when I was living out on the East Coast, I could go down and play tournaments in Delaware, up in New York and Pennsylvania, right? There was just so many courses within a reasonable distance, maybe not to go play every weekend, but the one weekend a year, there's a C tier or a B tier that you want to go out and play, this course that maybe you've seen video coverage of, or somebody said, you got to get out there at some point and this is the weekend I'm going to do it. So what I think we lack in that as a draw, we make up for in just how well they're run, right? I mean, we talked about the Queer Disc Golf Tournament earlier. There was no question when Andy, wrote back to us and saying whether he wanted to do that again. And it wasn't because Kingswood, I mean, it's a fine course, but that's not the reason they want to come back. It's not because of the course. It's because of the way that Rock and Mike ran that event and made it so welcoming to the kind of people that they were hoping it would bring in, which was a lot of new players. And, we're emphasizing sort of the fact that this was also a awareness and sort of advocacy event and really, I think, put a lot of thought to how to do that well. And so that speaks results in terms of how quickly they were committed to wanting to do it again next year. So
Yeah.
I think that's just how, the leadership and how people are doing the event running up here with what we have available I think that's been exceptional for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Probably the one thing I just want to circle back to, put a pin in it.
Okay.
You mentioned the USDGC doubles. I think you were kind of instrumental in getting that qualifier available up here in Edmonton for us. Is that something that's going to be happening again next year?
That was all Brock. He's the one that was doing it next. I'd like to help again next year because I won't be playing in it.
Sorry, Brock.
And thank you, Brock.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to be able to help with it. But yeah, it was something that I think we've already got on the books in terms of being able to offer again. And I really do think if people are thinking about like, is this something where I would want to have a chance to go down and play Winthrop and, say like, this is a course that maybe I've been watching for years on Jomez or on DGN. And, I've always wondered like what it would be like to play hole 17. Like you should do it. This is the best chance you're going to have. It's not one that you can go to just any time of year that you might want to, if you have an excuse to go down there. Like it really is just for this event, especially like the 1 week, that's your window to be able to do it in the way that you want to. So it's one that I hope people get excited to be able to come out, play the qualifier, and then really consider like, taking advantage of this as an opportunity that not a lot of people are going to get to do. You just down. I mean, you're a part of it. Like we saw so many pros that were out practicing, like hanging out, excited that like, thank you all for coming. Like the amateur weekend is what helps us be able to come out. We met, oh gosh, what's his name? I think I want to say Kevin. It might not be Kevin, but like Kevin, we were staying at the same hotel as the guy who spotted hole 17 for like 20 years. He's like, back when Barry Schultz and Ken Climo were playing it, I was waving the flag when they throw it out of bounds or throw it in bounds. And I'm going to be out there this weekend again. Like when else would I have ever been able to have a conversation with that guy? Right. We got to see Barry Schultz out there spotting at the amateur event, just because he likes to come and hang out, I guess. Like
nice.
if you're interested in disc golf as a sport, as an entertainment product, as, something that has some history to it now at this point, like, it's more than just playing in the event. And I think, if people can get excited by that, I would really encourage them to play the qualifier and then really consider going.
Yeah.
So I've got next step for you.
Well,
you go ahead.
I just want to say I apologize to Brock. I knew it was Brock because he came on our
Ask Me Anything to show us the disc.
And he showed us the disc that he just got. So
yeah,
I remember that. Secondly, I know we're talking about we're kind of talking locally here in Edmonton, get out to your qualifier. But for anybody that's listening that maybe it's not in Edmonton, look for your qualifier in your area. It's we're not just talking specifically to Edmonton. Anybody that has a chance to get out and get in, try and qualify for that tournament. Sounds like a great tournament. I'd love to go play Winthrop.
Yeah. Well, here's my question to you though. Now, those are the qualifiers for the U.S. What if they did an international qualifier, and then you could go to like that Viking course? Is that in Norway or wherever that one is?
Gates of
Valhalla, the Gates of Valhalla, or something like that. If you had a chance to do something like that, do you think you'd take advantage of it, Matt?
Absolutely. So I'm pretty lucky in that my wife is a big, like, travel is like her favorite thing, and so it's something that we do try to like budget our budget money, budget time to really make sure that we're holding as like a priority. And disc golf is just like the best activity that you can do if you're somebody that likes to travel, because anywhere you go, you're on UDisc and you say, where's the closest course so I can check this place off my list, or maybe check that course off my list if it's one that is a big draw. So yeah, absolutely. If there's a chance to be able to, go play one of those courses in Europe, or, I'd love to. I've never played a course in like Asia or, South America or, Africa, but like they're out there. I'd love to be able to see them. I'd love to be able to do it. So yeah, absolutely.
Couple of things. One, if you want to go play in South America, go talk to Miguel, because he'll try and convince you to go down to Mexico to play in that tournament.
Yeah.
And I think you've said it before, and I know Andrea Michaud, who's been on the show before, has said it. It's not so much when you travel and then you get on UDisc and you look at where there's a local course. It's more like you get on UDisc, you see where there's a course. Oh, Sweden's got a load of course. How about we go to Sweden this year?
Yeah, I was thinking exactly
plan it that way around.
But then the thing is it's always if you've got a partner and they are not a disc golfer, it's like, okay, hon, I've been looking at a few locations. I see we could go to Hawaii. We could maybe go down to Mexico, but I'm really, really thinking that Estonia would look good this time of year. That's maybe not as easy of a sell.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, we got to get people in places that people want to go to. Get some courses in there, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, Daryl, what do you think at this point? Do you want to roll it into wrap this up, or do you got some more thoughts? Or Matt, do you have any other thoughts?
How long have we been going?
We're at about
an hour.
Almost an hour. So,
do you think we can do this one quickly?
Yeah, we will. Matt has got so much knowledge on discs
that
there is no way. This is our Discdle portion.
We're going to switch. What?
Oh, is that where we're at?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm not there.
I highlighted. Do you want to go to this one? Can we do that one quickly? Or do you want to just go to Discdle?
I think we go to Discdle. Yeah, we saved that one.
Okay. We're going to save that question. Okay. Oh, in the chat, Sam is saying disc golf vacations are awesome. Like you said, he went down to Texas for the NADGT.
Yep.
He qualified down there, and just the same as you. He qualified, so him actually and Sam squared.
Yep.
Kind of qualified. They both qualified, so they thought, let's go down there. After speaking to him, it's probably one of those once-in-a-lifetime things that it came up. They were going to do it. They're not going to go down and do it again.
Right.
They'd rather go to Spain.
Yeah, or in this case, Belize. It looks like.
Yeah, and he also said that it looks like Belize has some bangers, and I think that Randy Duke, is a kind of a staple of Belize. There, who's that trick shot guy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Have you played Discdle, Matt?
I have not played it. I'm somewhat familiar with it. So it's the idea is it's sort of Wordle, but you're guessing what kind of disc it is, right?
Yes, and we're doing manufacturer, and then we're doing speed, glide, turn, and fade. And it's not every single disc that's out there, but it will let us know as we start to type it in if that disc is available.
So Brock has already done the Discdle for today, and he said he got it in 4. So he set the bar pretty high. Sam did not get it, but he was close.
Okay, so what I was thinking with this now, if we're going to do this on the show regularly, maybe, what we have to do is let's ask the guests to start us, but let's ask them to start with their favorite disc. And that's where we start off.
But it might not be that, but let's go anyway. Okay, so you're familiar with, you've got 6 guesses. You start off by typing in a disc, and it'll tell you if you've got the manufacturer correct or not. And then it'll also give you the speed, glide, turn, and fade, and whether you need to go up or down based on the number comparable to the disc.
And I'm thinking, Matt, I might know. Well, actually, you have probably 2. What are your favorites are? Can we guess? Let's guess.
So,
well, I think you'll get one of them for sure.
I mean, I would say. So, I don't know if I'm biased or not, but I don't know if this is one of your favorite. But I know you're known. I know you're known for liking the polecat.
I do like the polecat, right?
But I don't know if that's one of your favorite discs.
And I got one, though.
What would you say?
I got a guess. I actually got 2 guesses. No, the other one's not a guess, I don't think. But this one is the Resistor.
That is probably my favorite in terms of just like a disc that I love to throw. Okay. But it does have a challenger maybe for this year. There's one that I think is in my bag that has moved up very quickly to becoming maybe like my most thrown like driver, which is the Innova Orc. So that's the one that kind of came to mind in terms of.
All right. Okay. Well, let's do Orc.
You want to go for Orc?
Sure. Let's try it.
We're going to go for the Orc.
I think a very underrated disc, one that I think I didn't give enough thought to.
Okay.
All right.
So we've got the manufacturer, so we know it's Innova. So I'm all on board now.
And it's slower than a 10 speed.
Yeah.
It's got less glide than 4.
Yeah, that's fine. You can have it could be a putter.
It's got more turn, which means it's more negative.
So it could be like a -2.
Yep.
And less fade. So it could be a 2 or a 1. So we're looking at 3, 2, 1 for speed.
Right.
So I'm 3 and 2, minus.
1. No, not for speed. So, you're talking about for glide there.
No, 4.
Yeah, that's glide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So speed's got to go down anything under 10.
Under 10. Okay. So it's not a putter. So something under 10.
Mr. Innova bag, what do you got?
More turn than -1.
Pick like a 7.
But less glide.
Yeah, the less glide has got to be the one that's going to help us out. Like, what doesn't have a lot of glide? Do you know, Matt?
But more turn.
What doesn't have a lot of glide but has more turn, I think is going to be the tricky thing. Because like most, I would imagine most flippy discs, especially, I mean, it's less than a 10 speed, so it's already not going to be much of a driver.
Right.
But most flippy discs, I think, also generally have higher glide.
Yeah. I'm the only one that I can think with higher turn than that would be a leopard, but that's not going to give you the glide. You're going to have more glide than that. So less glide.
I think they have more glide.
Yeah. So
the other thing it didn't do is it didn't give us any gray ones, because a gray one means like it's more than 3 away. Right? If
you know what? Info. So it's more turn.
Yeah.
No, and Dylan in the chat is thinking that it should be 0-3. But no, if it's -1,
it's up. So if it's -1, it should be a 0 or a 1. And if it's yellow, it means we're 1 off. Is that the idea?
Well, the T is more turn, so more turn is more negative. You have to get to more turn. It's going up to more turn. So it is gonna have more turn. -2, -2. So it's probably -2, and it's probably 3. So do we know anything with it? Let's start there.
Well, no, because it's saying that the fade is lower than a 3.
Oh, and so the fade's a 2.
-2. Oh, a -2.
What is that?
So something lower. So -2. Oh, it could be a Valkyrie. That's a 9 speed.
All right.
But I don't know if it's got a 3 glide though.
Well, with this, we got to give it a go.
I feel like it's got to have at least a 4 glide. I would
think. let me try a Valkyrie.
Let's try it. I think that's a good guess.
And then that way I can tell if the -2. Oh.
Okay.
No, I think it can't be -3.
Yes.
3.
More turn.
-3, 1.
Turn has to go up. It's got to be more turn.
Well, I guess because we went from -1 to -2, and it's got to go up again.
So now we're like -3.
So lower speed than a 9 speed.
Yeah, but as you get with higher turn, then you don't really have any fade. The more turn you have.
So we're talking -3, 1?
Yeah, -3, 1 or -4, 0. And
that's getting some pretty unusual territory. I don't know if I have.
What's a super flippy
A shark?
No, a shark's got glide.
Because that's the thing. I was thinking a shark. I was thinking a stingray, but I think those might have higher glide.
Yeah.
But we might be able to get to the other numbers.
What can I... -3...
And Brock got it. So if Brock got it, does he have more disc knowledge than us?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So
than us all combined?
So it's -3, 1.
-3,
the heck? Lower than a 9 speed. -3, 1.
Okay, so Dylan says he totally doesn't understand. So Dylan, what we know is we have an in of a disc. It's slower than a 9 speed.
Because the S is pointing down.
Yep. The glide is going to be less than 4, so it could be 3, 2, 1. The turn has to be more than -2, so it's going to be -3, -4, -5. And then the fade is going to be less than 2, so it could be 1 or 0.
What about a Sidewinder or a Roadrunner?
Or a Mamba?
No, that Mamba's 11 speed.
A Mamba, okay.
But I think
okay.
I think I think a Sidewinder
is it an 8?
Is an 8 or a 7.
I didn't mind the Stingray just to try and find it.
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to trump you.
Okay, so put it in then.
Do you have any guess, Matt?
I think a Sidewinder or a Roadrunner would be.
I can't remember which one is which. I think Roadrunner is. I think one is a 9 speed and one is a 7.
Yeah, I want to say that the Sidewinder is faster, but I don't bank.
Okay, well then I'm good with going with Roadrunner.
Okay, let's do it. Hit the guess. What do we got?
Oh,
wait.
The fade.
We got the fade.
A Roadrunner's 9.
It's a 1.
And then it's a -3 now.
I just want to jump ahead and do Sidewinder.
All right, do it. Jump and put Sidewinder.
Well, does anybody else have any other guess?
No, I'm good with Sidewinder.
Are you good with Sidewinder, Matt?
Sure. Yeah, give it a shot.
I'm pretty sure it's a 7 speed. Oh, that's a 9 speed as well.
But now we need Dylan. Dylan, jump in there, buddy. What we need is something slower. Show it one more time for a sec there.
So we got
an Innova that's got -3, 1 for turn and fade. We need something with
4
less glide than a 5. Less glide than a 4, actually. So it has to be 3, 2, 1 glide, and it has to be slower than a 9 speed.
-3. So 3 glide, -3, 1.
Mm-hmm.
-3, 3.
It could be a wolf. I don't know if it's you, Jeremy, that said a wolf, but
No, I was with
One
you
of
on the
the, like-
stingray, but we could try wolf. Yeah. I don't even know a wolf. You guys are way beyond me.
I've never heard of a
I
wolf,
think
to be honest.
it's an old like DX kind of one that you might see in a starter pack mid-range.
Oh, look at that. 4, 3, -4.
Well, we got the glide right. Okay.
Yeah. And now we're down to the glide. Yeah, is 3. We're at 4, so it's a little bit slower. Is there understable putters?
So, is it a
It
Sonic?
would have to be.
It's a
Ooh,
Sonic.
I don't know.
It's a Sonic.
All right, let's get there.
-4 for the -4 turn. Oh, I don't know. Hang on.
Uh-huh.
No, because a Sonic is -4 turn, but it doesn't need to be -4. It needs to be -3, doesn't it?
Yes, it needs to be -3.
I totally thought it was.
What
a
was that
Sonic.
alien that they brought out? Was that them?
There is an alien disc. Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
Where are you thinking, Matt? I don't want to just keep jumping in here. Because otherwise,
Well,
I'm
it's
on my
kind of
own.
keeping it going though,
Yeah,
too.
I know.
So
Do you have any ideas?
Yeah. No, I think
What's a polecat?
yeah, so I don't. It's a 0.
Oh.
So I don't think for the turn in the glide. So I don't think that's going to be it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a Sonic is a good call. I don't know
Okay.
what the turn is on a Sonic.
all right, let's
I
see.
thought it was -4 turn, but if it's -3,
Survey says
it was a
no.
it was a wedge.
What is a wedge? Who knows what
Wedge.
that is?
I would have never.
I guess we could have asked for a. Well, Brock got that in 3.
Okay, so has anybody ever thrown a wedge or had a wedge?
3.5,
Never
3,
thrown a wedge.
-3, 1.
Wow. So I guess that's something to try. I'm guessing Brock has thrown. How would he have guessed a wedge?
Maybe he's just got good disc golf knowledge
Yeah.
or manufacturer knowledge.
So Dylan, Sam, anybody out there? Dina,
Has
Wedge?
anybody in the chat thrown a wedge?
Dina, have you ever had a custom request to dye a wedge? So, well, that's interesting. So I think what's happened with Discdle, it's been around a little bit because whatever week it's on now, I know when I first started trying it out, like Hex was one of the discs, and those discs that we all know are a Mako or something like that. But Sam says someone has one
Wedge is
locally.
Okay, yeah, wedge that's got to be a pretty deep cut. I don't know if that's going to be one that most people will get.
Yeah.
Well, and the other time was a V Cobra.
And I was just going to say, the first time we did it with Tim, it was a V Cobra.
Dylan's got a comment.
There's so many Innova molds out there. Like as soon as you type
Yeah.
that in and you see it's an Innova disc, you're like, well, I'm probably just not going to get this one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. They've been around for so long and they have so many discs. It could be a retired one or
Yeah.
something like that too.
I wonder how the discs are populated. If certain discs have a certain higher percentage of not being picked, like a Destroyer, a Hex, a Crave. If those popular discs are not going to be.
Or they've already
Well,
been
that's part of
done.
why I was hesitant to put in the resistor because I wasn't sure. I think NVP does like the 0.5 on some
Yeah.
of
Yes.
their like speed ratings, and I was like, well, unless it's exactly that, it's not going to.
And that
it's
is,
not gonna be.
that is the thing that I think.
It does go by those. Yeah, it'll
I
just
think
tell you more or
Dynamic-
less.
Yeah, Dynamic Discs, I think, has a 0.5 as well. And that was one of the things. Yeah, it was a 4 glide or, whatever it was. 4 turn, no. 3 turn, no. And it's like, oh, so it's 3.5 or 2.5 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
That might be the more like beyond ratings
hard.
we were talking about earlier. Like I think flight numbers might be an even more contentious discussion. About
Yeah, we'll have to
how
add
to
that
use
one.
that as a measure of anything.
You know what? This is something that this is a good point you bring up because we had Gabe Piska on before and we were talking to him we interviewed him. So we were talking about his coaching.
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned to you that, I don't know if we've really found, because disc golf is so young, I don't know if we've really found the correct form for a full, to get the benefit out of a of your form, because so many people have different variants of, no, you should do this, you should serve the pizza, don't serve the pizza, all these different techniques. So that, there is no true definition of what form is. Obviously it depends on your player, your own build. We're not happy with ratings because that, that's still so young that we need to find a better system for that. Flight numbers don't really correspond to what the manufacturers. This whole game is a sham.
But how many discs do you own?
Yeah, no, exactly.
So it's interesting. Well, we found out two things there. We found out that Dylan actually has 3 wedges. He keeps them in his ball golf bag. So that was one thing. Yeah.
There you go.
And then Dina said that she'd never heard of the wedge either. And my alien guess was horrible because it wasn't, she didn't say horrible, but because it wasn't understable. And then what says Sam cap us off of there? Oh yeah, he said flight numbers are a sales tool.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So one of the other things too, that I'll just give you a last thing on that Discdle thing, Matt, is that you can guess the disc, and I had the right manufacturer, the right speed, the right glide, the right turn, and the right fade. So everything was green, and it was like, sorry, this manufacturer makes 2 discs with those numbers. So then you had to figure out what the other disc was.
Oh, no, really?
Yes. So, but at that point there, I was using the help of the internet when I was playing, because I didn't think, I'm like, how am I supposed to guess all of this?
You cheated.
I didn't think that was cheating because I still had to pick the right disc. That's cheating?
Yes.
That's another conversation.
Just look up the flight numbers. Oh, that's the right disc.
There you go.
Okay. I think we're pushing the limits of keeping Matt here.
Yes. So?
Anything else you want to... no, I guess we have been on longer enough.
Yeah.
We shouldn't push it too much longer.
For sure.
Anything else is there anything you would like to shout out? Anything you need to let our listeners know? As
the newly appointed VP, are there any things you'd like to proclaim from your new position of power?
No proclamation. No, I was talking we had our first board meeting with both the kind of incoming and then also the outgoing members, and it was just a really great group. I think we're going to be in for a really exciting year. We're hopeful that the feedback survey that's out right now, that people have completed that. If you haven't yet, you still can. It's still active, but that's going to be your best way to be able to express your opinions on things like, what kind of tags we should have for next year. I know that was a discussion at the AGM, and we tried something new last year that we want to know, what do people think about that? In terms of like what kinds of events people would want to see, like, there's discussion around putting a course in and where we might want to do that. So if people have ideas that they want to express in terms of places where they want us to look into. I think there's just going to be a lot of enthusiasm. There's some really great new kind of highly motivated people that are going to be on the board for next year. And I'm just excited to be able to be a part of it. So,
yeah.
2
things I'd like to say. Now that we got that deadwood Tim Plamondon out from the president, hopefully we can take it on a bit further now. And also, I'd like to say a shout out to you saying that meeting that you had was really good, because that was what, I didn't get the invite or I missed it. So I wasn't on that meeting, but I am part of the new board.
Did you forget?
Yep.
Maybe communications forgot to put that message out there.
Yeah. That's not my department, I'm afraid.
No.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So take a look at the feedback survey if you haven't gotten a chance to. That would be the one thing that I would definitely want to plug for that. And yeah, we're around. Like, I'm accessible. You can send me a message, see me on the course, come up to me, let me know what you think, and trust that people are listening and that we want to hear all your ideas and know what we can do to help everybody. So.
Do you think your 2025 is going to be a little bit different? Obviously, you're going to be in a VP role this year. You were a member at large growth last year. In regards to, participating in the tournaments, maybe you did some volunteering, setup and takedown sort of thing, but you're able to play in the tournaments. As a VP, do you think you'll be a bit more behind the scenes and maybe not get a chance to play in those tournaments this year? How does your 2025 look?
I think so, yeah. And I think regardless of like the board position or change anything like that. That was going to be a plan anyways, was to be able to take, I think, less of a role in playing in the events. And I didn't really play in that many events last year either, but want to be more like available to be able to help and take on some of the responsibility of like trying out, helping with assistant TD and, networking behind the scenes. And then also I think especially like, the connections with the city. So not even necessarily the event side of things so much. I think we've got some really great people that have demonstrated the ability to be able to run those events very smoothly that, to the extent that I can help with. But I think really where I would like to put a lot of my efforts into is establishing and continue to grow the connections we have with the city of Edmonton, making sure that the parks that our courses are currently on, that those are being maintained with the amount of traffic and volume. It's a great thing that we have so many people out there at Rundle Park, but the actual park itself, we want to make sure is going to, maintain a good enough condition for everybody to enjoy it for a long time. And that means that we have to be able to account for that with hoping that the sport continues to grow. And part of that is getting new courses in, but then also making sure that we're, investing what we need to maintain the current courses that we have. So I think there's going to be a lot of work out at Rundle. There's going to be a lot of work out at Northwester is another one that we're looking to put some more focus and attention on, one that we definitely, I think, need some help. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to be, I think, spending the majority of my efforts, less so on like the event side and more so on kind of assisting Brock with kind of taking on some of that responsibility with partnership with the city.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end, Daryl. How are we going to finish this one off? Got any ideas?
No. How do we normally finish these? We just say thanks for stopping by?
Well, I think last time we got the guest to help us with the good old finish to a regular episode. Yeah. Did you want to do that?
Thanks to everybody that's in the chat. We appreciate it. Spread the word. Let everybody know that there is a free trial of the Patreon. So if they want to come along and just see what we get up to here, what we talk about, it's a little bit different than our Chain Out episode. Spread the word. We'd appreciate it. Thank you everybody that's in the chat and that has followed.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, Matt? There's only one thing left to say.
And I don't know if at the end of one of these episodes, there's only one way we can get out of here. Well, actually, it almost feels like there's two ways we could get out of here. Do you think we know which way we could get out of here? So we're going to catch you next time. But until then... Chain out! There you are.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you coming on.
Cool. Yep.